Debbie, let's bring you in. And I'm smiling because I think you're going to take us into open government, but I'm not quite so convinced that our government has been open at all in the fomenting of the wars that it's taken us into around the world, particularly in Ukraine and with the horrors out in the Middle East. What have you got for us?
Well, yeah, you're quite right. And good afternoon, everybody. Well, it's almost like we're watching a magic show here, and there's a lot of distraction going on. Magicians use distraction, right? Sleight of hand. And today I want to introduce you to what I believe is one of the biggest public-private philanthropic partnerships in the Western world that you probably haven't heard of. And bearing in mind that Keir Starmer has just said at the Labour Party conference, the state will take more control in people's lives, I think that this is going to be a segment where everybody in the Western world needs to be listening. So let me introduce you to the Open Government. And here's the UK National Action Plan 2023. This is to increase transparency, accountability, and these are the key words: public participation in government, So it goes on to talk about the UK Multi-Stakeholder Forum for Open Government, which is basically announcing their action plan for what they're going to do. So let's look at the action plan. So this is the next slide you'll see is the UK's 6th National Action Plan, 24 to 25. And you can see this is in collaboration with the Cabinet Office and the UK Open Government Civil Society Network through a multi-stakeholder forum. I'll come back to that in a minute. But what is the action plan? Well, Alex Burkhart, MP, started all of this off. And here's the action plan here. And they talk about the Procurement Act in this, open contracting, which is basically digitisation. And the Procurement Act actually has just gone through. They talk about civil society engagement, anti-corruption. They talk about the United Nations Convention of Anti-Corruption. I think every time we mention anti-corruption, perhaps maybe we should talk about this as being handled by what, in my opinion, is corrupt people in charge. So let's look at the UK Multi-Stakeholder Forum, because I believe this is the engine room. This oversees everything in the United Kingdom. And you can see that they've got 4 goals there. And they meet very often. And I'm literally only skirting the surface with this segment. Trust me, there's so much to it. But the next meeting, if anybody's interested, is going to be on Wednesday, the 23rd of October. And if anyone wants more information, I suggest we email Dr. Matt Donnelly and Dr. Ben Gittings, who are very kindly given their email addresses there, because I think we will have a lot of questions, because this is all going on behind closed doors. And it started off, actually, the Open Government Partnership started off in 2011. So this has been going on a long time, but I bet nobody I've spoken to has certainly heard about it. And who does it involve? Well, 75 countries are involved in this, with 150 local governments. So who are they? Well, this is where I say it's a public-private philanthropic partnership. We've got partners, government, civil society, businesses, non-profit organisations, and more. And they're overseen by a board of directors. So I'm not going to go into each one of them individually, because that's a whole new segment of its own. So let's just look at Maria Barron, who's the chair. And she is basically an Argentinian journalist. And she's been very much involved in civic innovator projects. She's received prizes. She's got lots of involvement on it. So she oversees the members. So the members then have to submit a 2-year action plan. So again, they're saying, we've got 75 countries, 105 governments, and now we're going to submit an action plan. But is your country a member? So here's a screenshot. You can search for your country, and I can tell you, if you are watching in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, South America, in the USA, yes, you are included. But no, India, China, Russia are not included. So what do they look at? Well, these are their policy areas. They cover much everything except, I think you're going to notice, they don't cover military. There's no mention of military in this at all. So we've got inclusion, anti-corruption and integrity, and then it goes on to digital governance, civic space, justice, open parliaments, environment, climate, health. And I've just highlighted one thing that I'm particularly concerned about, because the word protest seems to have disappeared. And protest has been replaced by freedom of assemblies. So these are going to be peaceful assemblies that are basically going to be policed by you, because this is all about you in government. So they've got a strategy, a 2023 to 2028 strategy, an open government partnership. And what does this mean? Well, it means we're going to get more trusted messengers. We're going to get more influencers. And on the next slide, you'll see that they're talking about an interconnected community. They're talking about making open government central, expanding civic spaces to cultivate champions and influencers. They're going to accelerate progress on reforms. They're going to launch partnerships. They're even going to become places where you can share your inspirational stories. And we have a number of countries to thank for experiments here. So I just want to show you a number of countries, because they've all made recommendations. And what kind of recommendations have they made? Well, thank you very much, Indonesia. But we are now going to be engaging people's access to justice and decriminalising assembly activities. Again, this is protests. So let's look at the next country. Who can we thank next? Well, we can thank Nigeria, because we're going to be looking at regulating the role of the police. This is basically about citizens police, right? Citizens policed. So when we go to Italy next, we can thank Italy, because they're going to give unobstructed access to internet platforms, and they've been working on a charter of internet rights. So all these experiments have been going on in all these different countries. And let's go to Ukraine, because Ukraine are included too. Considering they're a country of war, they've been experimenting with planned assemblies of peaceful events. And the USA, not to be outdone by, of course, they're looking at publishing data of law enforcement data in open data formats. Now, I've seen this happen in China, where people have their names, addresses, their phone numbers put up in public if they haven't complied to whatever. So all of these countries involved, who are the partners? Well, I'm not even going to go into them, but I'm just going to highlight a few. Civicus, Article 19, Carnegie, we've got Oxfam, and we've got Publish What You Pay and Community Democracies. Well, who are they? So I've just got one slide very quickly to show you, because again, this is a whole new news. No one else is talking about this. We've got Publish What You Pay, which is energy transition, net zero carbon, and the Community of Democracies, the Global Intergovernmental Coalition. And you've got Madeleine Albright named there. So this is all going on behind the scenes. And I've got, just to finish the segment off, a little bit of video to talk about open government.
Look at the wide-ranging, wicked problems we're facing right now. The climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, the worst humanitarian refugee crisis since the Second World War.
Entonces sí es sumamente relevante tener la alianza de gobierno abierto para poder afrontar estas situaciones que se están dando en el mundo y que las democracias pues logren salir fortalecidas.
It is essential to the resilience of democracy for citizens to be engaged, for them to be invited.
The time to act is now. And the Open Government Partnership has a unique possibility because of the networks it has already put in place.
So this is your government. Act now. The networks are already in place. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Yes, well, you picked up that key thing. Many people think that what we're showing is just talk. It represents sort of hubbub and noise. No, this is policy being enacted, and it's being enacted really quickly. It's going to drag us into, I've used the word, a dystopian future.